Fear not, Denizens, parade is here, aka the bringer of rain, aka father of the sea and sun, aka king of the core. And today, before I introduce my very special guest, I want to welcome you all to the Core Creators Podcast, where I interview creators across the HoloNet. And today, we have none other than the producer of the 2024 Denizens of the Rims Visual Dictionary, the 3D shipwright modeler, and a true aviator of the skies, Burgundy 26 of Burgundy Squadron. We have none other than Colin from Corellia Star Cosplay. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Of course.
That's a great intro. It makes me sound like I do stuff.
You guys all do stuff. That's why I have everyone on. Everyone's super talented, and you guys are helping me out by being here. But yeah, I'm so glad that we made time to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I know we talked about this a while ago, but I've been really looking forward to it.
It's trying to get the stars to align in everyone's busy schedule. We got to make these things happen, because it's going to be that time where when we meet in person, we're like, hey, we'll be as like awkward. But so I wanted to have you on the show for a few reasons. I mentioned the book, but I wanted to know where, we're talking about costuming and cosplay. Where did that start for you?
I always loved Star Wars, I guess. There was that period in my mid-20s where I fell out of love with it because it wasn't cool, and you're trying to be cool.
Yeah.
I know better than that now, but it came back around about 10 years ago. I was in flight school and just trying to get through the day, and that was about the time when Rebels came on, and so I kind of felt in love with Star Wars through Rebels.
Yeah.
I know for some people that's sacrilege, but for me, like, I watched the first episode, which is a two-parter, and I felt like I was watching Star Wars for the first time again.
Nice, yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm in, I'm hooked. And it was the show that I wanted when I was like 12, right? So
yeah.
Of course I'm gonna jump in with all feet. And then I started going back and rewatching the Clone Wars and doing all that stuff. And so the story about the costuming thing is the pandemic hit, and I was mopey, and everything that I'd planned on doing for that month or 2 months or 3 months was just gone, right? So I'm like sitting around the house not doing a whole heck of a lot. And so my spouse says, hey, who would you be in the Star Wars universe? I'm like, okay, that's a cool question. And I just kind of took it and I ran with it. And that's what started me down the costuming path. I think after that, I went on eBay and I bought a really cheap Han Solo from Solo: A Star Wars Story costume.
Yeah.
Which the jacket was pretty good. The rest of it was pretty bad, by any standard. But I still have the jacket. I still like the jacket.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, this is kind of fun. I like this. So it started with that, and then I talked about this on another show, but I thought Ezra had the coolest look of any of the characters in new canon.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do that, because that seems like kind of a challenge. And it was a challenge because you can get stuff online, but it's not quite right for him. I mean, I'm wearing my Hot Topic hoodie today because I'm feeling in the Ezra mood. But yeah, I had to have the jacket specially made. So I was able to join there's a group of Facebook guys who all cosplay Ezra, and I was able to get into that, and one of the guys there was able to make me the cool jacket. But then the armor was the hardest part, and it took me a bunch of time to get that. And it's just been a journey, like all of us. I took extras from Ezra to make my OC, and that was really what prompted it. Was I kind of wanted to get good enough that I could make that character and make it look good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I did a pretty good job with it, because I keep posting about it. But it was the thing I like about it is you're learning new skills and new things all the time. So it's been fun.
So did you make the shoulder armor yourself, or did you commission that?
So I started by commissioning it. There was a guy on Etsy who makes armor, and he does Mandos primarily.
Okay.
So I reached out to him and I said, hey, could you do Ezra? Because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, sure, I can do Ezra. And he came back and made some really good Ezra shoulder armor with what I sent him.
Nice.
And he put it for sale in the store, and I've seen other Ezras wearing it.
Okay.
But it wasn't good enough for the direction I wanted to go in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was, you made exactly what I told you to make, and I'm glad you're making money selling it, but I think I want to go a little bit. I think I can do it a little bit more accurate. So I
Mm,
eventually learned how to shape the PVC myself,
okay, okay.
which is hard
Yeah.
because you're taking a flat piece of plastic and you have to make it mold to the human body. And the human body has no
Yeah.
squares on it anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? So I gotta shout out that Chapters of Chester guy because he's also was in that group, and I was like, hey, who's done armor? Who's made it? And he said something like, I always trace it out on paper first,
Right.
and I thought that was really a really good thing.
Yeah.
So I did that. I traced it out on paper, and I just started hacking away at like pieces of paper until I got it to be kind of right,
Yeah.
and then traced it on the thing, and then started bending it with a heat gun.
Okay.
The reality, though, is the first one didn't go very well. The second
Sure.
one also didn't go very well.
Yeah.
Uh, but by the third time, I kind of had learned from my mistakes. So the iteration that I have right now is my third attempt at making it myself, and it's like my fifth or sixth attempt overall, between commissioning and everything else. So,
We suffer for our art. Another
oh yeah,
a thing I thought of too, for the way I used to make cosplay, instead of paper, you can do tinfoil and duct tape
hmm
because it'll hold the shape
hmm
a little bit better than the paper because the paper will be more rigid. So you can kind of
yeah,
get your like the natural curvatures of the body that way. Because people do like full
absolutely.
body casts of their. I think I might have done one where you just like wrap yourself up in garbage bags and then just duct tape it to your form, so you can have like your.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard that technique, but I haven't heard the tinfoil technique. I think that's
Yeah.
interesting. I wish
Yeah.
I'd known that like a year and a half ago.
Well, anyone who's listening, that's a technique for them to learn further down the line.
Yeah,
Because
add that to the technique library. We need to
yeah,
publish like a tactics, techniques, and procedures kind of
yeah,
guide
yeah,
for.
for sure. I mean, that's always a good resource. I didn't really work too much with plastics. I did a lot of EVA foam because it's like flexible and stuff, and for mobility, and it's very lightweight. And all you need is a heat gun, and you could get pretty far with that, especially if like the paint job looks good enough where it just kind of comes off as that Clone Wars style, Rebels style look that you're
Right.
looking for.
Yeah, because it's kind of like drawn on. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
you're in good company here. Rebels is my favorite animated show. So yeah,
Ah, there we go. Yeah. You got a friendly. That's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
But I will.
Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, look, I will fully acknowledge that Clone Wars is a better show, but there's just charm in Rebels that I like. I don't know what it is. It's just got some little bit of magic to it
Yeah,
that I'm more than happy to sit down and just continue to watch over and over and over and over and over again. So,
I'm gonna say it's a better show than Clone Wars, in my opinion. Be,
oh, okay.
yeah, well, because in that way, I mean, like, we'll talk about the shows really quick because I love.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's look at the shows.
We're talking about Star Wars. The Clone Wars drags on quite a bit from the first two seasons, obviously, and then it starts picking up and finding its way. But I think it doesn't have the magic of what the Gross Crew, the Spectres as a unit have. Like you have
Mm,
Hera, and you have Kanan and Ezra, and then you have even just the dynamics between the characters and the storylines. It feels like more of like that family that Star Wars didn't have for a long time. Where Clone Wars, you have Obi-Wan and Anakin and Ahsoka, but it's more contentious in the way that like with how it will move forward in the story with Anakin and Obi-Wan. And there's a few light moments of banter between like Ahsoka and Anakin where they feel like master apprentice and they have that relationship there. But there's something special with the Rebels crew. For me also too, I didn't start watching Clone Wars until I was really late, where I heard about the Obi-Wan and Maul fight. So I was like, okay, well then I gotta watch everything up until until that point because I was out of Star Wars then too. But
yeah, I mean your journey kind of matches mine because
yeah,
I remember being fresh out of college, in my job for the first time. I was working for NASA, I think, and
okay,
yeah, I was like starting to want to get back into Star Wars because I was missing that part of my life, which was
yeah,
had at one point been so important. And I was like, what's going on with this Boba Fett thing? And I think they had just dropped the first Mandalorian arc of Clone Wars,
oh okay,
and I like tried to watch it, but I'm like, dude, you're watching a cartoon. Turn it off. Stop it. And obviously, I'm over that now.
yeah,
But
yeah,
that was still the period of time where it's like, no, I'm too cool for this. I'm too cool for this. So I
oh
didn't I
wow,
didn't watch Clone Wars on the initial run. I
yeah,
like your assessment of Rebels versus Clone Wars,
hmm
though. I feel like I feel like you're actually spot on. I think I just finished rewatching Clone Wars actually,
Oh, okay.
because in the first two seasons are there's some gems in there. I
For
mean, if
sure.
you
Yeah.
ignore the movie, that first episode out of the gate with Yoda and the two clones is pretty strong episode.
Okay.
The rest of them are just kind of they're okay,
Yeah.
largely forgettable.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, season three is about when it hits its stride. So it takes about two seasons for it to pick up. Whereas
Yeah.
I had a friend who was a lot like me. He's like, I'm not watching the kids' cartoon. Solo, the movie hit,
Okay.
and Darth Maul shows up, and he's like, "What's going on
Yeah.
with this?" I'm like, "All right, let's have a conversation." So he watched all of Clone Wars when he was on deployment. He came back, he's like, "Oh my God, what was I missing?" I'm like, "I know, right?"
Yeah.
And then I'm
Yeah.
like, "So now you got to watch Rebels." He gets through the first episode. His assessment of the first episode was completely different than mine. I thought I was watching Star Wars again. He was like, "What is this?
Yeah.
What are you
Yeah.
making me watch?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, no, no, just wait. It takes about 10 episodes, and then it never stops."
Yeah.
And everything else is connected from there on out. I do agree with you though. I think the Ghost Crew as a unit is just so well defined.
Yeah.
One thing that I really picked up on, well, for one thing, one of the reasons I love it is because at some point throughout my day, I feel like Kanan, Ezra, or Hera just randomly, because let's face it, Ezra's pretty socially awkward. I think all
Yeah.
of us are.
Yeah.
Uh, Kanan and I have some similarities in terms of background and backstory. I'm not force sensitive, of course, but in terms of having things like be ripped away from you
For
that you
sure.
thought you
Yeah.
were going to go do through circumstances beyond your control that I really do relate to. And then he gets back to it and he becomes
Yeah.
better than he ever could have been.
Yeah.
And then Hera's just the consummate pilot. I'm going to anger some more people. I'm a Han Solo simp. Everybody knows that. But Hera is the best representation of pilots in Star Wars.
Thank you.
Yeah,
She's my
she
favorite.
is.
My favorite Star Wars character.
Oh yeah, Hera's amazing.
Yeah.
As a character, she is. Because I'm a veteran. I've been in the military. I've worked with people a lot like her, of both genders, really. But
Yeah.
she is such a good representation of what that kind of a person should be, and Han Solo is just not.
Yeah.
Sorry. Um, but I think about it this way: Hera and Han are both very talented pilots.
Yeah.
I think Han Solo relies on his talent more than his discipline, and Hera relies on discipline more than talent.
Yeah.
And so I think Han is probably more talented because he can get himself out of situations,
Sure. Yeah.
but Hera's smart enough to not get in those situations in the first place,
Yeah.
which is why she's a better pilot. There's an adage in the flying community, which is truly superior pilots use their truly superior judgment to avoid situations where they have to use their truly superior skill. And that's what Hera's doing all the time. I'm
Yeah.
watching her do it. She's like, I mean, yeah, we could do that, but that'd be harder than just doing it this way.
Yeah.
So, it's fascinating to just watch the dynamic, and it's so well written, and it feels just so real and so grounded, especially with the community that I live in. So,
Yeah.
again, that's something that I really just love watching about that show.
Yeah, I'm glad like you said it that way from, the perspective of being a pilot, cuz when I'm watching it, I'm just like she's making great decisions. She's making the hard decisions, even sometimes to have to leave someone behind for the better of the group.
Yeah.
It's like those are the tough calls I think someone like Han Solo wouldn't really have to make, He's kind of flying by the seat of his pants and just by feeling and by, getting through.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and look, he's got charisma, he's got natural leadership abilities, but he's more reactive than Hera is, and Hera is very, very proactive in terms of setting the stage and making things happen, and she's reactive when she needs to.
yeah.
But even then, she's kind of already thought about it. She's like, what would I do in this situation? You can just tell in the way that she behaves and she acts in the decisions that she makes. Whereas, like, my favorite sequence in all of Star Wars is the asteroid field in Empire Strikes Back. But that's Han being like, oh, I'm going to use this as an opportunity. And then being like, this may have been a mistake. Maybe we should turn back. Like, that's the whole point of the scene, right? And it showcases his talent and ability, but he's still... I mean, he openly admits, I may have made a mistake here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it works out for him, but it's more luck than skill in that case. And I think part of his progression is he recognizes that, but Hera's always been there. Like she made those mistakes early, and so she's just, I use my skill more than I use my luck.
How did you feel about when Solo was announced and everything? Because you're a big Solo guy.
Yeah, I'm a Solo guy.
Yeah. How did you feel about that? Because I'm a Luke Skywalker guy, but I still, like, in my mind, it's Harrison Ford. So having Alden Ehrenreich there didn't really fit the bill for me when it was announced, and even watching the movie, it still doesn't fit. But I'm curious for you, how'd that go?
So I gave him a pass because it's an impossible task that he was given
True.
for everybody. I mean, you said
Yeah.
it. Harrison Ford's portrayal of Han Solo was so good that it became an archetype,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, like, people will say it's a Han Solo type when they're
Yeah.
casting,
Yeah.
and I kind of look at it, and how do you play a character that's become that was that good and has become a type of character?
Yeah.
You don't. So I think that he was given an impossible job, and when you walk into that, I think he made the right decision, which was I'm gonna just do my own thing, and I'm gonna channel Harrison Ford where it makes sense to do that.
Sure.
But for the most part, this is a guy. He's 10 years before we see him. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know for a fact that if I was to rewind 10 years to where I'm 38 now. If I'm going back to my 28-year-old self and trying to play my 28-year-old self, I'm not going to play it the same way.
Yeah.
I'm not going to behave the same way. I'm going to do different things because I haven't had those life experiences yet.
Yeah.
So I think that he put in the work. I think that he made the character his own. And there was a deep fake that was going around a couple years ago where they superimposed Harrison Ford's face on Alden's body.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked
Oh, okay.
because every movement, every body movement, when you take the face away, just felt right.
Yeah.
And so I was very happy with the Solo movie.
Okay.
It's not the best Star Wars movie ever made by any stretch, but it was for me it was fun. I got past the Harrison Ford's not playing Han
Yeah.
Solo pretty quick because I was like, okay, I'm gonna see what this guy can do.
Yeah.
He's not Harrison Ford. Just go in and accept that. And then after that, it was fantastic.
Okay.
His performance is not the best in the movie. I think we all would agree. Donald
Donald
Glover's
Glover,
portrayal of Lando was the best. That was the best performance in the
Yeah.
movie. I watched that movie really just for Lando half the time.
Yeah.
But no, I thought he did a great job.
Okay.
I want more of that version of Lando and that version of Han and that version of Chewie on the Millennium Falcon because I think that group of people was just really good. And Kira, the girl playing Kira from Game of Thrones, I forget her name. Sorry,
Amelia Clark.
Amelia Clark. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I want more of her too.
Same.
I want more of what that world looks like, and
Yeah.
I hope that maybe they can do that now that some of the we're a little bit more removed from it, I guess.
Yeah. I had a theory. It didn't come true. I was hoping that at the end of Book of Boba Fett, when they were like, oh, there's some like mysterious person working with the Pikes, I was like, oh, I hope it's Kira, and then you can introduce, the Black Suns here and everything, and now go into this underworld gangster story that you promised us, but that never materialized.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I was going down that road too. I was going down they're setting up Solo the miniseries, with Kira and Lando and Han Solo coming back, played by those actors, not the originals.
Oh yeah.
But they didn't do that, and that's fine. That's their story. I still like the Book of Boba Fett though.
I do too.
I mean, yeah, here's how I like to describe it. Every episode is really well done, but when you try to string them together, it completely falls apart.
Interesting.
If you just go in and say, I'm just going to watch the episode and just enjoy the episode, it becomes pretty good.
Yeah.
But when you try to do like what they did with Mando, and season 1 of Mando is just a masterclass in storytelling, where it's one story told over 8 hours, I think. It doesn't really work for Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah. I think for me with Book of Boba Fett, Tamor Morrison is such, I don't know if it's the right word, enigma. Like he really pulls everyone in. I've seen him in like interviews and stuff, and he's having a great time, and he loves Star Wars. I like seeing him on screen. I just really like watching him on screen, even though some people feel even the same with like Luke. In my perspective on that, similar to yours with 10 years prequel Han Solo, I'm looking at these guys as older versions of these characters. So from what my point of view as 36-year-old man, how would I act at 56? I don't know, but I might have a change of character, and my motives might change, and my thoughts have changed. And it sucks because, again, Luke is also this archetype. Boba Fett is an archetype, the mysterious guy. And when we're actually seeing too much of them, it does perturb people in a certain way. But I still enjoyed. I think it's a lot of fun. And there's obviously, it's not a perfect show, Book of Boba Fett, but it's not my least favorite show. And I still want more seasons of that if we get it.
Oh yeah, I want more seasons of that. I think if they got a legit writer's room and really knocked it out and said, hey, I think this is the story we're trying to tell. I'm not saying they didn't do that last time. I'm just saying that it didn't quite translate. I think it's such a good. They had so many good concepts in there. I like how they made Boba Fett like the mirror of Han Solo in every way, because now he has a black Wookiee.
Oh yeah.
Right. And he's got his own version of Princess Leia in the form of Fennec Shand, who's one of my favorite Disney characters.
Oh, nice.
Star Wars characters out there. Oh God, I love Ming-Na Wen to begin with.
She's awesome.
But Fennec, like, she created that character, and I want more of her anyway. So if that means more Book of Boba Fett, I'm game for it. And I know another controversial opinion, but I did like what they were doing with the mods, because I thought it was hilarious. But I just I'm aware of the mod movement because I listened to the Who a lot when I was in my 20s.
Okay.
And I read a lot of books about that movement. So when they show up with the Quadrophenia bikes and the outfits, I'm just like, I know what they're doing. And then I found out that they were called the mods. I laughed really hard because it was drawing from real life. I understand it takes people out of it.
It does,
and it does take me out of it a little bit too. But I just thought it was funny.
It didn't bother me as much because I'm like, the Star Wars universe is huge. So like, why wouldn't there be this like techno group of kids or rebels of society in that way? I was telling Billy, I was like, it would be cool to have mod kids in Skeleton Crew as like the bullies to the kids.
That would be really cool.
Like Bon Alpha just pushing these kids around as a mod kid and be like, oh, okay, I get it. They're around.
But I thought the girl with the Geordie LaForge visor was going to be like that.
Oh
but
yeah,
apparently not.
Yeah. But she's very good, like good moraled character, because she's like, oh, I didn't want to prank you guys and all this stuff. Which Skeleton Crew is great. I'm loving it so far.
Oh yeah, I've only seen the first 2 episodes, but I think all of us have, except for those who got to see a third.
Yeah, in the premiere,
In the premiere, yeah. No, I love what they're doing. I mean, they make it very clear in the beginning they're doing E.T. or Stranger Things, but really E.T. and Goonies and all of that.
Yeah.
But man, it's got, I'm gonna use that word again, charm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so refreshing and it feels so new, and yet at the same time I feel like I've seen it before.
The familiarity is definitely there, which is awesome.
Yeah. And it feels so grounded in Star Wars too, and yet it's a pirate movie instead of a Western or something else. So it's got charm, it's got magic, it's got all the things that I want. So I'm rooting for it. Yeah.
I'm hoping it gets a season 2. It's funny because like all the Star Wars stuff we've gotten, it's only been season 1s besides Mandalorian. There might be others, but someone mentioned, oh yeah, I hope in a season 2, and I'm like, I didn't even think there would be a season. Like, that didn't even like cross my mind that they could keep going with this story. So I'm like, okay, hopefully if it keeps going the way we feel like it's going, then it could be successful and get more seasons of this group.
Well, I mean, I think it's the first show since Mando season 1 where the critics and the audience are both like above 90% or something like that, right?
Yeah, very positive.
Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
I think it was a swing. It was a risk, but I think it's paying off.
Yeah, I hope so. So what about the movies? How did you get into? You talked about it briefly, but growing up, where did you start?
Pretty vividly. I was in 2nd grade. I had a friend named Jimmy Shepard. I've tried to look him up on Facebook. Haven't found him.
Shout out to you, Jimmy Shepard, if you're watching.
Shout out to you, Jimmy, if you're watching. Because I mean, basically, he and I became friends. He liked airplanes and Star Wars, and at the time I liked trains, but he got me into airplanes and Star Wars, and now that's pretty much all I do.
Look at that. Wow.
So thanks, Jimmy. This is all your fault. But so he was like, hey, I'm really into Star Wars now, and I remember him telling me about it, and it was, I don't know, when you're a kid, your time is kind of warped, right?
Sure.
It feels like it was months from the time that he said, "Hey, I'm really into Star Wars," and I started begging my parents to let me watch the first Star Wars to the time that I did. It was probably like a week, but it felt like months.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember, so I remember he had this catalog thing, and it was the '90s. It was like the Thrawn Resurgence because the Thrawn books had just
Oh
come
yeah,
out.
yeah.
Um,
The Timothy
and
Zahn books. Yeah.
so yeah, I kind of pieced the timeline together as an adult and figured out like, oh, it was this time, so this was happening, and this
Yeah,
time, and
yeah.
this was happening. And so yeah, there was this catalog, and so that's like I saw the Star Destroyer for the first time. I think that was the first ship that I saw, and like weirdly around the same time, my brother got the Kenner line was being re-released, so my brother asked for an X-wing for Christmas. Neither of us had seen the movie; he just thought it was cool, and so like something there was something in the water kind of in that period of time.
Yeah.
I don't know what year or don't remember what year I was in second grade, but I think it was 92, 93.
Yeah.
I remember being watching the election, believe it or not, in second grade because that was one of our things. So we begged our parents to rent the movie. We finally rent the movie again, what felt like months later, but probably only a week.
Yeah.
And sat in there and we watched it for the first time, and of course I was hooked.
Is this
Right?
New Hope? New
I was
Hope?
like, oh, New Hope,
New
yeah.
Hope. Okay.
You got to
Yeah.
start from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And so we watched A New Hope and loved it. And then we found out that my dad had taped the Empire Strikes Back and Return
Yeah.
of the Jedi from HBO.
Yeah. Shout out to
And
Dad.
so yeah, right. And I guess he had forgotten. He was just like, "Oh yeah, I taped these." And so we watched Empire Strikes Back like the next day.
Yes.
And I was like, "This one sucks. I don't like this one." So we went on to Return. Look, I was in second grade. Now it's my favorite,
Oh,
but
okay.
but we watched Return of the Jedi, and I loved Return of the Jedi because it
Oh,
felt like
yeah.
it was very, very wholesome. But it's
Yeah.
weird because like it was very much a bootleg VHS. Sorry, I'm pretty sure
That's what
it's
I.
actually
That's what I grew up on. My dad
yeah.
also taped it from somewhere.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, but it was funny though because there were elements of the tape that were messed up. So you remember the old VHS would like not skip, but they would do like a fuzzy thing every once in a while.
Crinkle.
And
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
today when I watch it on Disney Plus, like I'm expecting the fuzzy things to happen
Yeah. Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
same moments. Yeah. Um, yeah, so it was just imprinted on me. So yeah, that was it. I mean, pretty much second grade through to I thought I was too cool for it, and then just continuing is just I watched when the special edition came out, I watched them all in theaters,
Okay.
and
Okay.
then you know yeah, I was too young unfortunately to have seen them all in theaters for the premiere, but
Sure.
yeah, saw the Phantom Menace, saw the prequels, and then I was like a little bit too old for the prequels when Phantom Menace came out. Like I had missed the cutoff with Jar Jar by like a year.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
Um, yeah, so I was like, I don't really know what they're doing with this guy. But then, yeah, then I watched Attack of the Clones and things. I started to see where he was going. It started to make a little bit of sense.
Okay.
And then it was like, yeah, I was getting ready to graduate from high school. High school? Yeah, when
When
Revenge of the Sith
set
came
came
out.
out. Okay.
So it was like, it was right on the verge of like, I'm a little too old for this, or in my head, I was a little too old for this, but I'm not
Yeah.
missing the last one, you know? Uh, and then, of
I'm
course, when it came back in
surprised.
2015,
Real quick,
yeah.
going back. I'm surprised you're like, this first episode's not not too old for this with your arms crossed. Because I mean, I'm only 2 years younger, and I was like in it for episode one.
Oh, look, I was in it until I watched Jar Jar, but I think like I said, I missed the cutoff by like
Just like a year or
6 months.
Yeah.
Like if it had come out 6 months earlier or a year earlier, I probably would have been all in on Jar Jar. But I was at the cutoff and I had just passed it. So where I thought the character was funny for the first time.
Okay.
So seeing it for the first time. I mean, now I look back on it and well, for one thing, I always liked the design of Jar Jar.
Interesting.
I think the Gungan design is fantastic.
I think it is good. It's just hard to get past the voice, and like to me, that's the part that really sends it.
And that's
into a
not
different
it's
direction.
not the actor's fault.
No. I'm
Ahmed
not blaming him. No.
His performance is so good.
Yeah.
Because he did exactly what he was told to do.
Yeah.
And his
Ahmed Best.
performance
Shout
is
out to
fantastic.
Ahmed Best.
Oh yeah. Yeah, shout out to Ahmed Best.
Yeah.
He did such a good and iconic performance. But it is a performance meant for kids. So and then once you get past that, you're just like, yeah, okay, I'm good. I'm here. I'm here for it. And I'm glad. I like the way they used him in the Clone Wars too, where okay, he's a little bit buffoony, but they age him up a little bit or tone him down a little bit.
Yeah.
And Ahmed Best came back and did the voice a couple of times, I think. So that is the version of Jar Jar that I really like. But Yeah, I do like what they were doing in all of those movies.
Yeah. For me, it was the rolling in the grass that really took me out with Anakin and Padme. That I was just, I cannot,
See, okay, yeah, so like age difference too, right? For me, that was a little bit. I had a little bit of a different reaction. I was more jealous of Padme. I'll just throw it out there.
yeah.
Um, Look, Hayden's only like 2 years older than me, so it's. Um, but yeah, I had a very different reaction to that scene. But I mean, I kind of watch it now, and for one thing, everybody's performance in those movies is just so good. I'm going to throw that out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do think that it could that scene was a little bit much in terms of trying to heavy-hand it. You know, that was it was a different time back
It
then,
was a
though.
different time. Yeah. I mean, and it's great because, I mean, at the time people hated them. And it's interesting to be 20, 25 years removed, and people are making memes, and there's the Clone Wars, and there's all this extra canon and retconning to where people can like stomach that stuff. But it feels like hopefully we could get that for the sequel trilogy, where, you know, people are so down on it right now. As time goes on, you know, we can go back and be like, oh, these are actually good because of X, Y, and Z, and learn more about those
Yeah.
characters in that way.
Yeah, well, I'm always rooting for new Star Wars. You
Yeah.
know, even if I don't like it, I always root for it when it comes out, right? And I
Yeah.
never, I've come after the reevaluation of the prequels. I've come to the conclusion that everybody is entitled to like the Star Wars that they like. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I have to like it too.
Correct.
So I will always be rooting for new Star Wars. And if I don't like it, I'm gonna use the Acolyte as an example. I
Yeah.
didn't much care for it, but I'm glad it's there. You
Yeah.
know, it. I'm glad that they tried it. I watched every episode when it premiered. I understand the story they were trying to tell, but I also wasn't the target audience.
Correct.
You know, I'm an older fan in my 40s. They're not targeting me for that show. So
Yeah.
it's fine for me to say I didn't like it, but I'm glad that you did.
Yeah, yeah. I've said it many times on this channel. I said I'd rather have more Star Wars at a lower quality, you know, or a Risk at a lower quality than no Star Wars at all. Because I remember when Episode 3 came out, there was no Star Wars to consume.
I'll do you one better. I remember before episode 1 came out and there was no Star Wars. Like, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, I was hungry. Well, going back to Rebels, like if Rebels had come out in 1992 or 93
Oh
when I was first getting
man.
into it, I'd have been all over it.
Yeah.
So whenever there's a new one that comes out, I'm always just like, you know what? I remember the drought when Star Wars was only 3 movies and a couple of books,
Yeah.
and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'm 100% here for what we're getting now.
Yeah, same. Like I said, it's different audiences. You know, I think Skeleton Crew is great, but it's not going to hit. You know, it's not going to hit the mass, like everyone in that way. There's going to be people who are like, I don't watch kids. You know, it's even hard for me to recommend it to people who don't like Star Wars as much as we do. Even though I say, hey, it's a good show. If you like Goonies, you'll probably like it. But I think I'll be able to recommend it as it goes on further with more episodes to see if it's like bingeable for recommendation. But I mean, if you like Star Wars, definitely give it a shot.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I do think it's broad appeal, but I also think that there's so much Star Wars now that the broad audience doesn't want to take the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
that. There's a lot of things to consume, so people can't watch everything.
Just pivoting to Marvel real quick, like to fill that void before Star Wars came back, even though Clone Wars was out. I
Yeah.
tried to get into the Marvel stuff, but it just became way too much, so I just kind of left.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Star Wars was going full throttle, and it still is going full throttle. So I'm like, I don't need that. I got the void filled, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying everything that they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm enjoying everything that they're doing, and I like that, you know, we've made different connections throughout, you know, online community, even like with Burgundy Squad. And real quick before I forget, make sure you guys who are watching check out Off the Rack Rebellion, where they interview Colin, Kate, and Billy. That was a great episode. You guys, I enjoyed watching you guys talk costuming there and everything. We'll get to some of the book here in a second. With the re-burgeoning of Star Wars, we actually got amusement park out of it, and that that changed like the game for everybody, because we could have just been doing costuming online as a group, like, you know, in our backyards or in the parks or outside, but now we actually have like a place to go, and now like we could go there, and it feels like an extra dimension, another level. It's awesome, and I'm super glad we're here at this this part.
Yeah, I mean it's great, right? Because I've always wanted to just walk around in that universe and exist in it,
Yeah.
and they finally gave that to us, and I still haven't gone because I'm lame. I know I still haven't gone.
You gotta go.
Uh, I know, and it's funny because I'm going to be in Orlando in 2 weeks, but I'm going to be doing pilot recurrent training, so it's going to
Okay.
be long days, and I'm going to be there. It's a hit and run, really. I'm going to be there. I'm going to get it done, and then I'm going to come back because it's Christmas.
Okay.
But I need to get down to Disney so I can do Batuu and do the whole thing,
You can't just
because
do like an hour or 2 hours.
no, I'm not. I don't think I'm gonna have even an hour. I think it's gonna be one of these things are always pretty intense because they try
Okay.
to get you in and out.
Oh, okay.
'Cause, I mean, it's like $20,000, so
Woo.
to do it. So you
Yeah, yeah.
gotta they try to get it done as quick as possible, and you don't want to waste your time or money either
Sure.
because if you have to stay, it's extra.
Got it. I
Um,
was gonna have some
and so
Florida Burgundy Squad people grab you and drag you.
I know I'm gonna get kidnapped on the day of my check ride. Like, no, I have to go over here. Yeah, one day. You know what I really want to do, though, more than Batu, is I want to go in full OC getup with everybody who has one, especially the people who are in the book,
Yeah.
and hang out at Scum and Villainy in
Yeah.
California. I
Yeah.
feel like that would just be a lot of fun. Get a Holoscan database, die to just take pictures that
Oh
day.
yeah.
That would be, I think, the most fun thing to do. But that's also kind of like what I do with my friends too, is just we
Yeah.
go out and usually there's a beverage or two involved
Yeah. Of
and
course.
just hang out and enjoy each other's company,
Yeah. No,
So
we're gonna make that happen. I think we're getting closer and closer for like better meetups and things like that. But you gotta go, and then when you go, I'm gonna have you come back on the podcast and tell me about your experience, because I had Womp on the podcast, and I was like, "Did you cry? Did you cry?" Let's talk about the book.
yeah.
It's the 2024 Denizens of the Rims, and you guys had a 2023. Can you go
hmm
into the inception of it all?
Yeah, I got to as always, I'm always going to shout out Ish Rao, who
Mm-hmm.
I reached out to. He's the first one in this community I reached out to because I was teaching myself how to CAD, and so
Okay.
by doing that, I was designing spaceships because I felt that would be a fun way to learn how to do it. So I had a different Instagram, but I saw his Denizen character. I'm like, that's cool because I was
Yeah.
thinking about doing Agents my OC for the first time. So I reached out to him, and we chatted for a little bit, and then he started this Discord, which is separate from Burgundy Squadron, called
Mm-hmm.
Denizens of the Room. It's one of my favorite places to hang out online, just because it's pretty quiet. We're trying to make it less quiet, but when you're building something, you can go on there and say, "Hey, how do I do this?" And I
Yeah.
guarantee you somebody will tell you.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of that community, is building your OC, but using tools and techniques and being able to help you build it and craft it. So I'm looking around this new Discord, and we've got these really cool people who are doing really cool things. In parallel, on my Instagram, I see other people building these characters, and they created their own little visual dictionary page to explain their character. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. So I made one for my character because I got a story for him that's been brewing in the back of my head since 2020 when I first conceived of him.
Yeah.
And you can find on and Kate's podcast too that I've written a couple of stories. Still want to do a table read with those stories,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, we got to do that. But I wanted to get the story out there into the world, and so I made this page, and I'm like, that's cool. And then, I was goofing around, and I made one for each, just as a, hey, I appreciate you starting this Discord and bringing me into the group,
Yeah.
and really just being a leader in this field. And then I was like, well, wait a second, that was pretty easy, and that was pretty fun actually. So
Yeah.
I see all these people that are equally as creative, probably more creative than me, and I had been listening to Armor Party, and they would always talk about costuming being a charity thing, and I'm like, well,
Mm.
what do we do? So I thought, well, what if I put together a book? Because I'd written one book, I wanted to write another. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do though, but I wanted to at least dip my toe back in there. Since
Yeah.
since last year, I wrote two more books, long form nonfiction books that you
Okay.
can find on Amazon.
Yeah.
Shameless plug,
Yeah.
but
We'll drop the we'll drop the links in the description.
yeah, but it was great because for the Denizens book, I went back and I just started like reaching out to people and
Yeah.
saying, hey, this is something I want to do. I want to make sure that we we put it out there. I want to make sure that all the proceeds go to a charity. I'm pretty agnostic as to the one. So I put two up there, and every year we vote on a new one. That's becoming the thing
Nice.
that I'm pushing on because it's a new group every year. It's not the
Yeah.
same Denizens.
Yeah.
And so the first book went out. I like to say we sold tens of copies, but the reality is we raised 200 and something dollars for charity last year. We
Nice.
benefited the You Can Play project, which is for LGBTQ plus sports youth
Okay.
who are trying to find their way as athletes and as identifying in that community.
Cool.
And I thought that was really great,
Yeah.
but I think we can do better. So this year, I put my other one out because being an Air Force guy, I've worked with a lot of veterans, and so I put out Boulder Crest Foundation, which ended up winning.
Nice.
I think Dak Tahira, who's also a Burgundy member, put up the Critical Role Foundation, which was also fantastic. I
Yeah.
hope they win next year.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I thought they were going to win.
Yeah.
I was really surprised when I think Boulder Crest ran away with it.
Oh, okay.
In all honesty, I'm not even really sure why.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm really glad that they won for a couple of reasons because one, it's mine, but two, it's actually helped a friend of mine that I
Okay.
worked with who came back from doing, I think he did 3 tours in
Oh,
Afghanistan.
wow.
And by his own admission, he's had some problems and still does.
Sure.
And so when we talk about that sort of mental health and we talk about helping our fellow people, I think that's actually really, this veteran help thing is actually, I think, really close to the Star Wars story too. Because if Star Wars is all of human history playing out in the stars and all at once,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the idea behind it. George Lucas was very smart about history and sociology and things, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at all throughout human history, there's always been warfare, there's always been battles, there's always been people who have stood up and said, "Yeah, I'll go do this. I'll go do this for you because I think it's important." And then, like almost to a T, every civilization just kind of says, "Okay, thank you very much," and dismisses them and
Mm,
forgets about them as soon as it's over, right?
right.
We're not unique in that case. It happens everywhere.
For sure.
And Star Wars tells that story through the clones
Mm,
because
yeah.
once the clones are made to fight the Clone War, and then once the Clone War is done, now Empire, but former Republic says, "Okay, thank you," and
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
throws them out.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
do anything to help them, you know.
Yeah.
So one of the really beautiful things about the Clone Wars TV show is that it told the story of the clones and made them people.
Right.
And when we go back and we look at it, and we see in that one scene in Obi-Wan where Tim Morrison comes back and he's playing a clone, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm homeless. Can you spare something?" And Obi-Wan's like, "Yeah, I can actually." It's that story told ad nauseum in the Star Wars universe,
Yeah.
which is a direct reflection on everything. I think it's more specifically the Vietnam vets, but I think it's
Yeah.
every veteran group throughout
Sure.
history in every country.
Sure.
And so that's why I'm really glad that they won this year because
Yeah.
I think it's a very close to the Star Wars story when you think about the Clone Wars.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's really thoughtful. It's so easy to forget about that kind of thing, especially when we're not, seeing it. And not to get super down on war, but it's a real thing and it's going on
Yeah.
constantly, and it's always in the back of our minds. But if paying it forward is really an awesome thing, so I'm
Yeah,
excited
that
to
was a
hear
very
about it.
long-winded answer to your "How did I come about it?" question, and it was a little bit meandering. So we got there.
That's fine.
Um,
That's fine. We got time. We got
yeah.
time. But tell us about the
Uh,
book.
Yeah, so the book is a real step up from last year. You got to do one to do one
Yeah.
sometimes, and so I don't have the old one in front of me, but I did. Here's my copy,
Oh
and I know
yeah.
you've got a copy coming, right?
Yeah. I gotta put in
Um,
my order. I'm definitely gonna get
oh, you got
one.
to put in your order
I gotta
still.
put in
Oh, you
my
should put it in
order
your order.
still. I
I
had to
know.
buy a car
Oh,
recently.
yeah, that's probably more important. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. You got to be able to get around.
Yeah. But I'm gonna
Uh,
get one. I'm getting one.
Good, because you're in it.
I
And
am.
I don't know how many people know. I know you know that, but I don't know how many people actually know that you're in it this year.
Yeah, not too
So,
many. Yeah, not too many. But I made sure to put my backstory. I actually had my backstory written, and when we were going back and forth, I was like, "Will this fit on the page?" You're like, "No, it has to be shorter." I'm like,
no.
"Okay."
Yeah, I felt really bad because I really wanted this year to be a lot more uniform than last year.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
yeah, it was fine. I didn't
just
I
yeah,
didn't care.
no, I know, but I really you weren't the only one to have that problem.
Yeah,
And some people
yeah,
were like, "Well, you can just move the biography section up, can't you?" I'm like, "No, I can't because when you look at them all together,
yeah, yeah,
it's not
yeah.
going to track." you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I appreciate everybody's willingness to cut down their biography. That being said, like those biographies that were long were always such a joy to read. It's the one thing that I
Yeah.
really, really like putting this book together is when the denizens send in their backstories. They're always so unique and so interesting. None of them are the same. There are
Yeah.
parallels because we're all working in the same universe, but
Sure.
you can tell that there's a lot of care and a lot of thought and a lot of creativity put into who these people think they would be in Star Wars or who they
Yeah.
want to be in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. I think that's, yeah, it's super cool. I mean, my background for that kind of stuff is like, role playing games. I'm very familiar
Yeah.
with Critical Role and things like that. And I know we have quite a few D&D players in Burgundy Squad, so I know their minds are just going with backstories and things like that. But it was fun to kind of figure out, like, for my OC, I'm like, what time periods were he was involved with which in affiliations, and it was cool because you're like, oh, pick your vehicle, and I'm like, oh, I have a vehicle in mind. I love the Ghost, I love that ship style. But you're like, oh, do you have a name for it? And I'm like, I gotta come up with a name. So it was kind of fun doing that little, like, the little brainstorm and put some things down on paper. That was really fun.
Yeah, it was one of those lessons that came out of last year, though, was because my character was highly specific, so I was expecting
Mm-hmm.
everybody else to be really specific.
Yeah.
And I discovered that some people are just not, and that's fine. I'm not here to
Yeah.
say that one way is better than the other. I think, like I said on Off the Rack, you can be specific, but it restricts your freedom of movement.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're more freeform, it allows you for more freedom of movement.
Yeah.
So I think both approaches are really good. But
Same.
what ended up happening was last year I was I tried to be very structured. I ended up not being very structured just because people had different things. So on this year, for example, I have just a quick facts page because I
Mm-hmm.
figure everybody knows these basic facts. What affiliations did you have? Around what years were they? Which was a little harder than I thought.
Yeah.
Where are they from? What's their profession or professions? And then two pieces of equipment
Mm-hmm.
that they carry with them. Everybody kind of knows those things, right?
Yeah.
And but then to your point, yeah, getting back into the, oh, does it have a name? Like what color is it? You know, which I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed that process because I always enjoy getting into that detail of, why did you almost like why did you name your ship this?
Yeah.
Why did you choose this blaster over this blaster? Billy and Kate dropped an episode today where they're talking about, props and
Yeah. I
specificity and
saw it.
props, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I listened to it on the drive from the airport today. Yeah, even like, your ship, your speeder, your whatever. Oh, I don't have a ship, I have a speeder. Oh, I don't have any of that. I just walk everywhere.
Oh, nice.
Okay, cool. And what's the why behind that? I think that's always an interesting question to start asking people, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, even that too, even coming down to the name, because remind me of your ship's name for
My ship's name is Celestial Fire,
Celestial Fire,
which
right?
I think was fantastic. I actually got that. That is a quote from real life. It is a George Washington quote. He had this
Oh.
quote that I really love, which is labor to keep alive in your breast that little spark of celestial fire called conscience. And
Mm.
so that's where I got that from. It's also convenient that celestial fire has the same amount of syllables as Millennium Falcon, and it's also two words. So
I like how you like
it all
really
kind
thought that out. Where you're like, oh, it has the same cadence.
of yeah. So it works out. It worked out really good.
That's awesome.
Um,
Yeah, for mine, I was like, okay, well, let's think of fast birds, and I was like, well,
yeah,
my favorite bird is a peregrine falcon. So
yeah,
I was like, I'll name mine the peregrine. So that's how I
yeah.
came up with mine.
Which also is where the Millennium Falcon's name came from, was Peregrine. So
Ah,
yeah, I don't
good
know
to
where they got
know.
Millennium from, but they wanted the fastest bird because it was the fastest ship. So
Yeah,
Falcon, yeah,
and you said there's some Easter eggs in there too, right? In the book.
yeah. There's some Easter eggs in there. One of the things that I think is really really cool is we have a lot of Denizen and Burgundy overlap, and they're not the same, right?
Yeah, I've
Someone was
noticed
asking
that.
me what is the difference between a Denizen and a Burgundy? Well, a Denizen is anybody, and technically all Burgundies are Denizens,
Hmm.
but not all Denizens are Burgundies.
Right.
So what we do instead is, my character Agents Rick is a member of Burgundy Squadron, but if you read his bio, it doesn't mention it anywhere.
Oh,
But
okay.
if you look on his page, you can find a little hidden Burgundy logo if you look hard enough,
Yeah.
and it's on every single Burgundy member's page in the book.
Nice.
So to me, that's a little Easter egg. Is if you go in, because some people say that they're Burgundy, they're like, "Hey, I'm an official card carrying member of Burgundy. That's
Yeah.
in my affiliations,
Yeah.
or it's in my bio." And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then some of them don't say that, but I wanted to call it out specifically because Burgundy's motto is "We're everywhere, everyone and no one,"
No
right?
one, yeah, yeah.
So I kind of would like everybody to go through and look at every page and see if it's there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I went through and I made sure that all the Burgundies have their logo, and they do.
Yeah.
But you may need a magnifying glass to find a couple of them.
Yeah, that sounds like a
So,
little Where's Waldo
yeah,
in the book. I was thinking about when I get the book, it's gonna probably bring me back to when I would go into like Borders or Barnes and Noble and grab the visual dictionary and just sit on the floor and just kind of like turn
oh yeah,
and look through like all the Star Wars little details of like the character costumes and the backstories. Oh, it's so much fun. So I'm glad we have something like that.
oh yeah, and it's really great for me to reference too, just because I'm like, oh wait, I know this character. What are they talking about here in this story that they may post on Ferrex Friday or whatever it is?
Yeah.
And it's also, I think it's really great to show off the creativity of everybody.
Yeah.
In one of the things we did last year, one of the guys, not, I don't remember which one it was, but his costume, by his own admission, was like, my costume's okay, but this prop is what I
Mm,
really love.
okay.
And so we made sure that we put the prop in there. And so the level of talent and the diversity of talent there, I think, is a really great thing to showcase. On top of everything that we're working on, and hopefully every year you look back and you're just like, oh man, that first year I was in there, not so good. I'm amazing, you know, like that. That I think would be a really cool thing to look back on, right?
Yeah. Yeah, to have the different
Show
years
your
and
own
go,
progression.
because I'm already feeling that about 2024. I'm like, oh man, I need to upgrade. And so I got a couple of new things, but I'm trying to piece things together to see what looks right. Because it's like, oh, do I wear these pants with these boots or these boots with this vest? It's
Yeah, but that's
because
part of the fun, isn't it? Right? Because you're
yeah,
like, what is the most Swarzy look when you're doing those sorts of things?
yeah. What's your costume hot take? The thing that'll make people upset with your Star Warsy looks. Do you have anything in mind?
The thing that'll make big people upset.
I'm putting you on the
Uh,
spot. I just thought of it now because I know
no,
Billy's is
it's good.
glasses.
Laces. You shouldn't have
Laces.
laces on your
Okay.
Star Wars costume.
Yeah.
We have people who do that, and that's fine. I'm not here to gatekeep,
Sure.
but
Sure. Sure.
you shouldn't have laces. I know I'm going to piss somebody off out there, and I know who I'm going to piss off by saying that. But
It was me. I'll take the blame for asking. I was just curious.
I used to be on the no zipper bandwagon too until somebody sent me a gif of Luke Skywalker in Empire Strikes Back
Zip
zipping up his suit, and I'm like, all right, you win. Like I get it, you win.
It's so hard to not find anything with zippers on it for like modern
Yeah,
clothes. It's like almost near impossible to find anything. So the zipper thing doesn't really bother me, but as a
yeah,
glasses wearer, for me, I'm like glasses takes me out of it. So I try not to when I do my looks because I'm not opposed to wearing contacts. It's just I have the dailies, but just like the one time use contacts, so it gets kind of pricey. So I get it.
yeah. Glasses don't bother me so much. I think it's only because I know George Lucas said don't put glasses in Star Wars, but I think in reality you're going to have them.
Yeah.
I just feel like no, not everybody's going to get the surgery. I feel like
Yeah.
it's going to. I think that exists a lot easier. I can get my mind past it. So yeah, I think it's more important. I think for you guys to be safe and wear glasses, just find Swarzy glasses.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna if I ever do the LASIK, I'm gonna
Oh
be
yeah.
like Billy. This is for Billy because he doesn't. This is for the squad because no glasses allowed.
I hope you know what I'm doing for you guys today, and it's only for you.
Putting my eyes under these these Death Star lasers to fit in. Well, it was awesome to have you on the show, and thank you so much for your time. But we need to get you to Galaxy's Edge. We got to make this
Yeah.
happen. And there
Oh
was
yeah.
talks of May the 4th, and if it isn't going to be 2025, you got to try to go to 2026.
Oh yeah, 100%. Look, it's on the list of things to do. It's going to happen, and I have a weird way of making things happen that I want to happen. So yeah, it's a matter of when, not if. But
Sure.
you're right. I do need to go to Galaxy's Edge. Yeah, I'm not sure how everybody else would feel about that, but
Only the real
but
fans.
yeah,
Only the real fans.
yeah, loyal fan. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to existing in that world just for a couple of hours and getting in there.
I think you're
I
going to love
really
it.
want to fly the Millennium Falcon. I got to do that. I've only got to do that ride and then go hang out in Olga's for a little bit.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Well, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so you can find me at Corellia Star Cosplay on Instagram, and then CorelliaStar.com, where the book is for sale.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Grab one. It goes to a good cause. And if you're any mildly interested in Star Wars cosplay, I believe Burgundy Squadron's open. I believe Denizens of the Rim is also open for people to join
Yes.
and make some new friends and get some cool tips on how to build stuff. And everyone's super friendly. Thank you again so much for being on the show. You can find me at Rancor here on YouTube and Instagram. Also, Parade Rainer is where I do my costuming and my traveling and some geek stuff and fun stuff. But with that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of your galactic day. Punch it, Chewie. Boom! We're out of here. Burgundy Squad out.